Favored enemy now allows the ranger to always have the hunter's mark spell prepared, and it does not require concentration. Starting at level 13, damage can no longer break their concentration on the spell. Still have to concentrate on it. This is important so that the spell can't stack with other things that also require concentration.
Okay, so yeah, 2024 Ranger. Yikes. You read the title. I want to explain what I mean by fun, okay? Because fun is, by definition, subjective.
I like to have fun.
Everyone's definition of fun is different. But I will say, I feel like the main problem with the new Ranger, and the old Ranger for that matter, when I refer to the new Ranger, I mean the 2024 Ranger. The old Ranger, I'm referring to 2014 Ranger. I feel like math isn't the thing that makes people mad. Because if you ask many optimizers, if you ask many optimizer YouTube guys, they often will tell you that the Ranger isn't a bad class, mathematically speaking. They do good damage. They do decent damage. They're not the top damage. They're not the worst damage. But when you ask the average player, is the Ranger fun? I don't know what they would say. But I did do a poll with my channel members, and at the time of recording, about 80 people participated. By a big margin, most people voted Ranger as their most disappointed class with the 2024 rules. Again, I only added 4 classes to the poll, but that's because those are the 4 classes that I feel like people are the most disappointed in. The point of this video is to talk about the Ranger and Hunter's Mark, but also another point of this video is to discuss the general concept of fun in D&D and how fun doesn't always have numbers involved, and how there's different mechanics that they added in the 2024 rules that actually make other classes more fun than they were in 2014. And I want to discuss those because I feel like they had a really big missed opportunity for the Ranger. Am I a game designer? No. Do I play D&D a lot and am I a big nerd? Yes. Do I have the answer for what would make the Ranger better? Kind of, but not really. I'm not a game designer. I don't know what the best way to make the Ranger is, but what I will say is they really made a lot of the other classes a lot more thematic and a lot more fun based on my definition of fun, which I'll kind of go into. I personally think that if your abilities make you feel immersed in the character that you're trying to play, I think that's important. So yeah, my main point here is that having your abilities reflect the narrative you're trying to tell is fun to me. And then right after this, I basically start talking about how you can reflavor things to make it more fun. A lot of people forget that this game is all made up anyway. You can even change the mechanics of the game. But even within the mechanics of the game, for example, a heavy crossbow, you could just say is a longbow. So even though the mechanics are a heavy crossbow, in my brain and for narrative reasons, it's a longbow because I think longbows are cooler than heavy crossbows, but mechanically, I want a heavy crossbow. That you can already do. But when the mechanics by default are already thematic and already to the character you imagine your head's liking, that's fun. That feels great. Before I get carried away, I want to go over the history of the Ranger in 5e briefly, just to kind of like, give you some info. A lot of this too is vibes based. What I mean by that is how I've heard the Ranger talked about online and how I've heard the Ranger talked about within my own spaces. So first of all, in 2014, 5e came out, and pretty quickly, from my understanding, the Ranger was kind of known as the weakest class. This is for many reasons, but in my personal opinion, what I think one of the biggest reasons was the Ranger had a lot of very specific abilities that only worked in very specific situations. And D&D has always kind of, as far as I know, considered there to be 3 pillars of play, them being role-playing, combat, and exploration. And in 5e specifically, the exploration tier is probably the least active out of the 3 pillars of play. Like, I wouldn't even consider it a pillar of play in 2024, in my opinion. And that being said, having a class that is the best test at a pillar of play that a lot of people didn't engage with much. Wasn't really very fun. Also, when all your abilities rely on a specific creature type that you're fighting, it just kind of feels bad. And then the Beastmaster Ranger, for example, I don't want to get into too much detail because I have a lot to talk about in this video, but the Beastmaster Ranger, you had an animal companion that you couldn't really use very well because you had to sacrifice one of your attacks for the pet to attack, and usually their attack wasn't as strong as your attack. So at a certain point, it sort of was like, why do I even have this beast? And then on November 21st, 2017, Xanathar's Guide for Everything came out, and they introduced the Gloomstalker Ranger. I feel like the Gloomstalker Ranger was Wizards of the Coast apology subclass to the D&D community, and it was so strong that it instantly made Ranger a lot better just by you picking that subclass. And it sort of became like when the subclass has stronger abilities than the base class, I feel like that's kind of a problem. And then most people just picked the Gloomstalker and ignored all the other subclasses like all the time. I was one of those people. But then Tasha's Cauldron of Everything came out in November 17th, 2020, which was 4 years ago, guys. 4 years ago. What? In Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, they added a bunch of new optional class features for most of the classes, but specifically the Ranger essentially got a bunch of overhauls with all their abilities. And remember, this is in the context of the Gloomstalker Ranger being pretty good, and they added a few other Ranger subclasses that were also pretty good, like the Swarmkeeper Ranger. They actually added in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And so all of a sudden the Ranger started feeling pretty good. Like you had the Gloomstalker, you had the Swarmkeeper, you had all these new optional class changes that basically took away all of the exploration abilities that didn't really do much for you and added actual active abilities. But you have to understand the context of this. The reason why people were pretty happy about these Ranger changes is because Tasha's Cauldron of Everything was a book that added to the rules. It wasn't an edition change. So the expectations of how much they could improve on the Ranger weren't very high because it's like, it's still 5th edition, you know? It's not an edition change. It's not a complete overhaul of the rules. We're not trashing the old version of Ranger. We're just giving you optional features that you can choose to use if you want. And you can pick and choose which ones you want to use, you know? So it was sort of like, okay, this is better than the old Ranger, but it's still 5th edition, you know? I could talk about how 2024 is still 5th edition too, but you guys know that it's like not really, but it is. So yeah, so this era after Tasha's, this is when I made my first Ranger character. And of course I went with the Gloomstalker. It was the first time Ranger felt like really cool to me, you know? And it's really interesting because there's all these things that like I didn't realize about Ranger, didn't think about Ranger, that I was like, oh wow, it's a D10 hit dice class. I didn't even think about that. Oh wow, it gets extra attack. Oh wow, it's kind of like a fighter and a druid. And fighters and druids are both really good. Wow. I did end up multi-classing out of it at 5th level, but still, those 5 levels of Ranger really helped my character a lot. And then the OneD&D playtest started happening, and Jeremy Crawford said the glorious phrase,
"And it does not require concentration."
No concentration. There was praise in the streets, people were rejoicing. Yeah, Hunter's Mark is a spell that I feel like no one had problems with in 2014 because it's a first level spell. You use it at lower levels, and then when you get higher level, you switch it out for something else, you know? And I feel like people didn't have a lot of opinions about it, you know? It was very obvious in OneD&D that they wanted to make Hunter's Mark the quintessential Ranger ability, which like, okay, if you change it, then that could work, you know? No concentration, that's a great first step. Then it's basically sneak attack. And then the next playtest happened, they changed Hunter's Mark.
We also have tweaked Hunter's Mark to make it not only Ranger exclusive, but also if you cast it with higher level slots, its damage now goes up. Hunter's Mark, though, also now has its damage limited to only once per turn. We've known for quite some time that Hunter's Mark, if its extra damage is exploited too many times on a turn, actually causes it to be more powerful than it should be for a first level spell. Again, that extra damage needs to be activated no more than once per turn. But then that's also why we've made it so that that damage goes up if you invest a higher level spell slot.
And this one I don't think was received as well. It wasn't just basically sneak attack, it was just sneak attack, but it required higher level spell slots. And I think I think they got into a situation that it was so much sneak attack, but it wasn't sneak attack, that you could use it and sneak attack together. So like, let's say you take a level 1 dip into Ranger, you grab Hunter's Mark, and then you go into Arcane Trickster Rogue, and then you have spell slots that progress with your level, and your Rogue level progresses your sneak attack, and then you can do sneak attack and Hunter's Mark with the version where it does multiple d6s, the higher level spell slot you use, and then at high levels you're using 5th level or 4th level spell slots to cast Hunter's Mark and sneak attack, and even though it's happening once per turn, they're both happening once per turn, and then you got a crazy thing going on. I personally would have loved that interaction, but I think they saw that and they were like, shit, we can't do that. Oh, so then the final time they're talking about Ranger, the playtest is over. These are now the official announcements. I was listening to this. I was at work. I can listen to things at work.
Today we are talking about a very big topic. We're talking about the Ranger, and we effectively have a brand new class.
The Ranger, more than any other class in the new player's handbook, is a new class. People got to see the evolution of the class through the Unearthed Arcana process, and now in the new player's handbook, you will get the brand new Ranger. The class has always been widely played, but in our satisfaction surveys over the years, the class has also been one of our lowest rated classes.
And Jeremy Crawford mentioned Hunter's Mark.
We also now have a brand new version of the Favored Enemy feature. And this feature now gives you the Hunter's Mark spell prepared all the time, and also gives you free castings of it a certain number of times. Now we'll come back to this spell as we journey upward through the levels in this class, because we're going to see that the new Ranger then has that spell improved at later levels.
And we were like, okay, yeah, Hunter's Mark, yeah, okay. He hasn't said if it has concentration or not, though. And we don't know if it's the same yet. And then time went on, and he said Hunter's Mark at this level is changed. And we were like, oh boy, no concentration?
At level 13, here's where their Hunter's Mark spell starts to improve. So they already always have that spell prepared, and they get a number of free castings of it per day. Starting at level 13, damage can no longer break their concentration on the spell.
It can't break concentration. So that implies that we still concentrate on it.
Still have to concentrate on it. This is important so that the spell can't stack with other things that also require concentration.
Level 17, we get another change. What is it? No concentration now? You have advantage on all attacks. Oh, okay. Level 17? I don't think I'll really use Hunter's Mark at level 17, but okay. And then, level 20, Hunter's Mark gets changed again. What happens? A D10 goes from a D6 to a D10? Okay. I'm sad. I'm sad! And then they sinned once more against us all, guys. Us Ranger players, they continued on with their mocking of us. Because Paladin, one of the most powerful and loved classes, beloved classes, you could even say, they had this spell called Divine Favor. And, Divine Favor, didn't think much about it, it's kind of like Hunter's Mark. Except, it's a little bit lower damage, and, it takes concentration, just like Hunter's Mark, so, And, but you don't have to switch it on targets, so that's kind of cool, But, Paladins don't really use it. I've never seen a Paladin cast Divine Favor, personally, in one of my games. August 1st.
All right, next we have Divine Favor. So here is the new version, and its change here is, look at the duration. Nothing about concentration. Yep, concentration has been removed from Divine Favor. That really does make it a much better spell.
Oh, Divine Favor doesn't require concentration, but Hunter's Mark still does, even as a level 20 Ranger? Oh. And then, Magic Initiate. They made it so that you can only get druid, wizard, and cleric spells, they wanted to protect the classes that get unique spells. No one can get hex now because warlocks, that's their unique spell. Paladins, you can't take their smites because that's a unique thing to them. Oh, but Hunter's Mark, anyone can pick it up if they take the feat Fey Touched. Literally any character can take Hunter's Mark if they take Fey Touched. Oh, okay. Oh, the Paladin subclass that already has no concentration divine favor. Oh, they get Hunter's Mark as a free prepared spell with their subclass. Oh, okay. That's cool, I guess. So yeah, that's sad. That was frustrating. We're going to the next thing. Just a quick disclaimer about these spells I'm going to be talking about. I'm specifically talking about damaging spells, and a lot of these are either spells you could use with Hunter's Mark or spells that you specifically can't use with Hunter's Mark because they're concentration. And this is a important part of the Ranger kit, and why Hunter's Mark is such a contentious issue is there's a lot of spells that don't synergize well with Hunter's Mark use. And so that's why I'm bringing these up. Any spell that I don't mention either isn't good enough to talk about or is non-combat spell. So first of all, let's go ahead and start with Hunter's Mark. They did make some changes to Hunter's Mark, and a lot of people might have not noticed this. First of all, it's force damage now, which I think makes sense because there's probably going to be a lot more damage resistances since they got rid of magic weapon damage. We think so far, we haven't seen the monster manual. But the main change for Hunter's Mark that a lot of people might not notice is that it used to say that the damage only applies to weapon attacks. Now it applies to your attacks. So that means if you're casting spells, you can apply Hunter's Mark. That does affect some ranger spells that we'll talk about later on. I'm going to kind of split the other spells in sections of relatability. I'm going to start with the smite-like spells is what I'm calling them, because essentially a lot of the spells that used to work like the non-divine smite spells that paladins had are now working like how the new paladin smite works, which oddly enough is actually better for rangers in most cases. So first of all, ensnaring strike is still concentration, and that's mostly because when you have the target ensnared, you concentrate on it to keep them restrained. So I feel like the restrain condition is way underrated. Ensnaring strike is one of my favorite ranger spells. But again, still concentration, so it can't really work with Hunter's Mark. The difference is you don't have to cast it until you hit the target, so that's cool. And then we have lightning arrow. I was never a big fan of lightning arrow, but now it's not concentration, so you can just add it on to any attack that you'd use using your bonus action. And the main thing I don't like about lightning arrow is it doesn't apply your weapons damage at all. It changes your weapon attack into a all lightning attack, and there's no modifier added. So I'm pretty sure it's 4d8 at level 3, which isn't bad, but like, why is my weapon damage not included? And then there's also an AoE component to it after you hit, which can be good, but if you just want to add a little bit of extra damage to one of your attacks, you might hit one of your allies. So there's that. And then the last one is Hail of Thorns. It's fine. It's level 1 spell. It is a bit nicer now because it's not concentration. If you want to add some AoE damage in a very small area, it's like, I think it's a 5-foot radius, then you can do that now, and it's a bit easier, and you can do it while you're using Hunter's Mark. So that's an improvement. That is truly an improvement. But I never cast the spell, and I don't know if I'll cast it much now either. And now we move on to the druid spells. These are spells that are not unique to the ranger, but rangers have access to that are from the druid list. All of these spells are concentration. So if you're using Hunter's Mark, you can't use any of these spells. We got Entangle. Restrained is such a good condition. Not for you. Spike Growth. With all of the new ways to push people, we have Barbarian's Brutal Strike. We have the World Tree Barbarian's crazy new abilities that can move people around. We have Weapon Masteries with the push property. We have crazy new grappling feats where you can grab people and go your full movement speed. Spike Growth goes crazy. It's even better than it already was, especially depending on who else is in your party. Then we got Summon Beast, and I'll go ahead and talk about Summon Fey and Summon Elemental as well. These are all general summoning spells. I feel like depending on your build, especially if you're going the range build and you're just doing 2 attacks or 3 attacks, depending on what you got going. Like if you're not doing the dual wielder build with, Vex and Nick. If you're not doing that, these typically do more damage than Hunter's Mark, especially if you upcast them, which you can't upcast Hunter's Mark and do more damage. So, and then we have Grasping Vine. Grasping Vine is insane if you combo with other AoE spells, because it does a good amount of damage and you can keep using it every turn, and it also grapples someone. And then I'm going to talk about the general AoE spells. Some of these are Ranger exclusive. Some of these are available for Druid as well. Conjure, the word conjure now means AoE effect now in 2024 D&D. So these are either cone effects for the Ranger or just general AoE effects that last multiple rounds. We have conjure animals, conjure woodland beings, spirit guardians, but in a specific area, but worse. So again, conjure animals, conjure woodland beings are all concentration, so can't use those with Hunter's Mark, but I'm not really complaining about that. Not a big fan of these anyway. They're fine. And then we got Conjure Barrage and Conjure Volley. These are decent. These are Ranger exclusive, and if you have a lot of targets that are close to you, they're good. But it's casting a spell as your action, so you can't do any of your regular attacks. But neither of these are concentration, so that's good to know. You can have Hunter's Mark up with these spells. And then we have just 3 good spells in general that do act differently now. First of all, Swift Quiver is better now. You no longer have to set it up with your action, I'm pretty sure. I should probably look that up if I'm making a YouTube video about it. Yeah, it's now a bonus action, and then you get 2 bonus action attacks, but like the other spells, it's concentration. So at 17th level, you can make 4 attacks, but you can't make 4 attacks if you have 4 range attacks. You can't make 4 range attacks if you want to have Hunter's Mark up. So yeah. And then we have Steel Wind Strike. Steel Wind Strike has always been a great spell, but because people usually don't get past level 10, bards are the ones that got to actually use this. I bet you more bards have cast this spell than rangers have ever cast this spell, even though it's a ranger exclusive spell.
I forgot that wizards have it too. Lol.
And it did get buffed with Hunter's Mark use, but it's still situational, because now that you can use Hunter's Mark with any attack, not just weapon attacks, these are spell attacks. The 6 targets that you can theoretically hit can all have Hunter's Mark added to them, but you have to have 6 targets that are all within 30 feet of each other. So I don't know. I feel like that happens sometimes, but not that often. And if you're concentrating on Hunter's Mark, you can do potentially 66 extra damage. Ooh! And then this is actually my favorite spell change. And I'm a person that I actually think high wisdom rangers are the best rangers, mostly because you have all these amazing concentration druid spells, and a lot of people don't use them because they don't have a high wisdom. Magic Weapon now is not concentration, so you can cast Magic Weapon and upcast it, and you can have your weapon be a +1/+2, and not for ranger because it's 6th level spell, but eventually +3 weapon. If you're multi-classing, it's really great. So you can have a +3 weapon even if your DM hasn't given you one. Non-concentration. If you have like an 18 dex, but you have a 20 wisdom, but you have a +3 weapon, you're doing pretty good. Out of these 19 spells, 14 of them require concentration. That's a problem. One of the next thing. I also think one thing that sucks about Hunter's Mark is sneak attack. What's happening in sneak attack? Not mechanically, what's happening narratively? The rogue is sneaking up behind someone and stabbing them, or the rogue is sneaking up behind someone and they're distracted by your friend and they sneakily stab someone, or they're hidden behind a bush and when the enemy's not looking, they sneakily shoot an arrow at them. That's cool. That's epic. That's thematic. That's like how you would imagine a movie scene when you see a rogue. Paladins, what's their damaging ability that's unique to them? Oh, Divine Smite. Oh, that's so cool. Their weapon is full of holy radiant energy. They smack someone with their weapon and it bursts with radiance and it smites their foes. That's super epic and thematic. That's exactly what you imagine when you think of a paladin. What's happening with Hunter's Mark? What's happening? The arrow hit harder? A little bit though, just a little bit. The arrow hit a little bit harder, just a tad bit. There's no visual thing. There's no like I don't know. I don't even think the enemy would notice. They're like, oh, that's an arrow, and it kind of slightly hurt a little bit more. Like, yeah, I just don't really know what's happening narratively, and I feel like that's the aspect of it that kind of sucks. Going with what I just said, what I just mentioned, with the rogue sneak attack and paladin smite being very thematic, I want to go over the things that they changed specifically about rogue and barbarian that I think is great and was a big missed opportunity for Ranger. So first of all, if you're an optimizer, you know that rogues and barbarians, for optimization purposes specifically, typically aren't as much chosen. And if barbarian's chosen, it's a 5-level dip. If rogue is chosen, you multi-class into a class that has multi-attack typically. For you non-optimizers watching, which I don't think many of you are, but if you are, hi, I love you. You're the best. Optimizers are great too. Rogue and Barbarian are some of the most popular classes to play as because they're easy to understand and thematics are top tier. They're very fun. Rogue, everyone knows what a rogue is. If I asked my mom what a rogue was, she would kind of get the idea of it. Same with Barbarian. My mom's seen Conan the Barbarian. She gets the concept, you know? And in 2024, they added Cunning Strike to Rogue. Now when you're sneak attacking, you can poison someone or trip them. One of my least favorite things about 2014 was that poison damage isn't good and it's hard to make happen with weapons, and rogues didn't have any inherent ability to use poison. So Cunning Strike also has the trip ability. Rogues are kind of tricksy, you know? So you can trip them, but later you can incapacitate creatures, and you're sacrificing your sneak attack dice to do these things. That's a great mechanic. First of all, it's a resource that you already have and they're manipulating it, and there's kind of a give and take to it. You know, you sacrifice some damage to have some sort of effect happen. I love that. That's great. That's amazing. And now barbarians. So the thing about barbarians is barbarians are kind of like fighters, but instead of being these skilled, very like tactical, mindful fighters, they're kind of angry and mad and going crazy. And it doesn't always have to be that way. If you're a barbarian, it's a little different. That's fine. But like the stereotypical barbarian is a screaming, raging person that is wildly hitting their weapons, and their weapons are attacking so recklessly that they're gonna get hit easier, but then they can also hit way better because they're not even worried about their self getting hurt. Very fun, very thematic. But at a certain point, as you get higher level in Barbarian, in 2014 rules, it doesn't really get much better than level 5. But in 2024, they added Brutal Strike. Now you can sacrifice your advantage with reckless attack to push someone 15 feet away. You can knock them over. All of this feels so thematic and it's just like so fun. And mechanically it's really good too, but just the feeling of it is great. Like, oh my gosh, I just love these abilities. And now we kind of want to talk about how every class sort of has a unique thing that they can do that other classes can't do. And the new Ranger abilities, a lot of the classes can do the things that Rangers can do. And Ranger doesn't really actually have a quintessential ability that only they can do anymore. I'm going to go over them, and then I kind of want to do a thought experiment with you about how other classes would feel if they had this same thing going on, because it's kind of weird. I feel like it kind of, if people don't understand why people are mad about Ranger, I feel like these examples of other classes being built the same way as Ranger, I think will kind of help you understand what people are frustrated about and what they're talking about. Okay, so we're gonna go over all of them really quickly. I know this very well because I've thought about it a lot, so I'll be able to do it pretty quickly. So we get first level spells. Ranger does have some unique first level spells that are unique to them. For example, Zephyr Strike, Ensnaring Strike, Hunter's Mark technically. It is also available with the Paladin subclass, the Vengeance Paladin. So Paladins can do this. Weapon Mastery. All of the martial classes can do weapon masteries now, but that's fine. That's not like it. I'm glad they have them. Like, yeah, that's great. Deft Explorer, Expertise, Rogues, Wizards even now, and Bards all have Expertise. Am I mad that Rangers have Expertise? No, but again, not a unique thing that Rangers have. Extra Attack, not a unique thing. Roving, your speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing heavy armor. You also have a climb speed and swim speed equal to your speed. Your speed is increased by 10 feet. Barbarians have this. Monks have this. The climbing and swimming speed, that is unique. Boom. First unique thing the Rangers have is climb speed, swim speed, and a few unique spells. More expertise, okay. Tireless. This is again one of the only unique abilities they have. They get temporary hit points equal to 1d8 plus their wisdom modifier, and you can do this action a number of times equal to your wisdom modifier, and you regain all expended use when you finish a long rest. Okay, that's unique. Kind of. It's kind of unique. A bunch of other classes have ways to get temporary hit points. But yeah, that's technically unique. And then this is probably the most unique feature they have. decrease exhaustion. Whenever you finish a short or long rest, your exhaustion level, if any, decreases by 1. That's cool, but I feel like it's very DM dependent on how much they use exhaustion. Exhaustion is better in 2024, but again, DM dependent. We'll see what monsters look like in the monster manual when that comes out, but potentially maybe exhaustion will be used more often, and if so, then maybe this will be very good. But again, with what we know now, I feel like it's not that big of a deal. Taking damage doesn't break your concentration. Hunter's Mark. Woo. Nature's Veil. Okay. This one's pretty cool. As a bonus action, you give yourself invisible condition until the end of your next turn. But again, a bunch of classes can go invisible. It's kind of like greater invisibility because it doesn't end when you do attacks, but a lot of classes have greater invisibility. Precise Hunter, yeah, you get advantage. Hunter's Mark, cool. Your connection to the forces of nature grants you blind sight to a range of 30 feet. That's cool. But again, blind fighting exists. Again, it's only a range of 10 feet. And you gain Epic Boon, and then your Hunter's Mark is more damage. But I want you to understand this. So, very important detail of this is the levels you get these things. So spellcasting is unique, one unique thing. A few spells are unique to them. Cool. As we talked, Depth Explorer, Fighting Style, nothing really unique there. Major subclass, ability score, improvement, whatever. Roving level 5, you get one unique thing where your climbing speed and swimming speed equal your walking speed. Cool. Level 6, expertise, not unique. Tireless, that's the one of the unique features. Level 10, Nature's Veil, level 14. One of the coolest features that the new Ranger gets is a level 14 feature. And then Feral Senses, again, one of the coolest things that Rangers get is the blind sight out of 30 feet, level 18 feature. You have to remember, guys, the majority of people don't even play to level 10. So for the majority of players that decide to choose a Ranger, the only unique things you get that other classes don't get is some unique spells, and your swimming speed and climbing speed is equal to your walking speed. Awesome. And I do know you get free uses of Hunter's Mark, but whatever. Yes, I'm not including subclasses because the subclasses do really help the Ranger a lot. Actually, more so than most classes, subclasses help them. But that's not the point of this video. This is about the base Ranger and the base class. Let's go through every class real quick, okay? Level 1, Rage. Boom. Unique ability. Not only a unique ability at level 1, but a unique ability that you use throughout the whole playthrough and is defining of your class. Great ability. Reckless Attack. Level 2, another unique ability to the Barbarian, and great. I could go longer, but boom. Level 2, we already have a class that feels different from any other class. Boom, level 2 Barbarian. Bard, level 1, Bardic Inspiration. Boom, unique ability that only bards get. Level 2, Jack of all trades. You are half proficient in like all your skills. Boom, unique ability. And you have to remember, Bardic Inspiration becomes better as the class gets better. You use Bardic Inspiration all the way to level 20, and it's class defining and amazing. Cleric, Spellcasting, Divine Order, those are cool, but level 2, Channel Divinity. Okay, to be fair, Paladin has Channel Divinity as well. So that technically isn't unique, but how Channel Divinity works for clerics, I feel like is a bit more powerful. And it is very different. There are unique Channel Divinities that they get inherently as a cleric that do make them unique. They also get a lot more unique spells. Like the cleric spell list is one of the 3 main spell lists that you can use with Magic Initiate. So I feel like with Wizard, Druid, and Clerics, their spell list and them being full casters for that spell list, I think is a unique enough trait count as a unique thing. You get Seer Undead. No one complains about the Cleric. Druid, level 1. Again, you get unique spellcasting. Level 2, Wild Shape. Boom. Unique thing that only Druids can do. Boom. Level 2, Fighter. Level 1, Fighting Style. Second Wind, technically unique to fighters, but like, you know, a lot of things have abilities to heal. Level 2, Action Surge. Unique thing that only fighters can do, and it's so good. Level 2, already found it. Monk. Level 1, Martial Arts, Unarmored Defense. That's a unique thing already. Level 1, you got Martial Arts. You can be unarmed, you know, you can be with, you know, a fighter or whatever. Monk's Focus, level 2. This is where we get discipline points. Already a unique thing that only monks can do. You get flurry of blows, patient defense, step of the wind. You could argue that rogue gets similar abilities, but it is still pretty unique. And then you can always make a bonus action unarmed strike. Level 3, you get deflect attacks. That's a unique ability. Slow fall, like, oh, bunch of unique abilities that monks get, all before level 10. Like, amazing unique abilities. Paladin. Oh, lay on hands, unique ability. Paladin smite, unique ability. Channel divinity, kind of unique ability. Aura of protection, level 6, unique ability. Boom, 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 unique, unique, unique. Rogue, level 1, sneak attack. Level 2, cunning action. Level 3, steady aim. And then level 5, we have the new cunning strike. We have uncanny dodge. Oh, yeah, cunning strike, this unique ability. Sorcerer, innate sorcery, the new innate sorcery ability. That's a unique thing only sorcerers have. Font of magic, meta magic, very unique ability of sorcerers that only sorcerers get. Warlock, my favorite class. You get right away at level 1 2 things unique. Eldritch invocations are very unique to Warlock. Pact magic, the entire way Warlocks do their spell casting, they are the only class that spell cast the way they do. Pact magic, magical cunning, level 2. That's an addition to Pact magic, but yeah, unique. You keep getting more Eldritch invocations every level, and basically every single level of the Warlock is unique and different from other classes. Wizard, spellcasting. They have a lot of spells that only they can cast or them and sorcerers can cast, but then they get Ritual Adept. Boom, unique thing that wizards get. They can cast any ritual spell that they know anytime without having it prepared. And also their spellcasting is unique. The way they do their spell book and everything, very unique. Scholars, just expertise. And they also have Arcane Recovery. That's unique to them. So yeah, every class has a very unique thing that only they can do, and they all get it really early on, typically before level 3. They get their new ability that only they have. And I feel like that's really important and a thing that people can easily forget. Hey guys, this is something I want you guys to think about. So, like I said, Ranger, all of their abilities that changes Hunter's Mark starts at level 13. If Hunter's Mark is the quintessential Ranger ability, it doesn't get affected at all until level 13, besides the free uses. And then Precise Hunter, level 17, and then Foe Slayer at level 20. Imagine if the Warlock, which I would argue invocations are their most unique ability, imagine if you didn't get any Eldritch invocations until level 13. Also, imagine if you didn't have invocations at all, and instead you had the Hex spell for free, and at level 13, you couldn't lose concentration on it. At level 17, you had advantage on things that were hexed, and level 20,
It went from a D6 to a D10.
okay, let's do another one. You're a rogue. You have sneak attack, okay? Your iconic feature. What if sneak attack didn't go up in damage at all until level 13? To be fair, Hunter's Mark does go up in damage when you have more attacks, but still. This one's fun. Imagine if Paladins at level 13, Divine Favor, imagine Divine Favor was still concentration, and at level 13, Divine Favor couldn't be lost with concentration. And imagine at level 17, Divine Favor gave you advantage on every attack. And then imagine at level 20, Divine Favor went from a D4 to a D6. You kind of get what I'm saying? You get what I mean? It's weird. So yeah, I talked a lot at the camera for hours. I hope my editing makes it a lot better. If this was a really well organized video and all my points made sense, then I did a good job. The main conclusion I can make of all of this is I feel like Wizards of the Coast didn't know what to do with Ranger, but I feel like we didn't really know what to do with Ranger as well. Hunter's Mark isn't fun, in my opinion. And I don't know if Hunter's Mark is the biggest problem with Ranger, but what I do know is that Ranger is a problem in this game. People don't like the Ranger. And you would think after messing with the Ranger for 10 years that WotC would have figured out the Ranger by now, but they didn't. A lot of people have been talking about how, oh, just make Hunter's Mark non-concentration. Boom, fix the Ranger. I honestly don't think that'll fix the Ranger. Will it be better? Yeah, it will. But I really don't think that'll fix it, but it will be better. The next build video I'm gonna have out next week is going to be a build video based on making a thematic archer character. The amount of Ranger I put into it is still yet to be seen, but I want the feeling of a Ranger as a character. Not only that, I want it to be kind of unique, a unique twist on a ranged arrow shooting Ranger. What's kind of interesting about the new rules is a melee Drit style Ranger is actually way stronger than the stereotypical bow wielding Ranger now. I love the bow building ranger though, and that is what I think when I think of ranger. So I'm gonna make a build based on that. So yeah, hopefully you guys see that next time. I would love for you guys to check it out. If you liked my commentary on this, let me know what you think about the new ranger. Let me know how you would fix it, and if you have any other points that I didn't mention or that you feel like needs to be said, just let me know down in the comments. If you disagree with me, all engagement is engagement. And if you enjoyed this commentary, please subscribe. Maybe share it to one of your friends. Either way, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next week. Peace.